"Can you be my date tonight?" She begged a stranger who turned out to be a CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to today's story. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you," Emma said, her voice shaky as she rushed out of the restaurant, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the heat of embarrassment creeping up her neck, and her mind raced as she fled into the cool evening air. The cold breeze did little to calm her nerves. She walked briskly, trying to put some distance between herself and the restaurant, but it wasn't enough. Her mind kept replaying the moment she had mistaken him for Kevin, and the way he had looked at her when she realized her mistake. Why had she run like that? Why hadn't she just stayed and apologized? She felt foolish, and worst of all, she felt like she had blown a chance she wasn't sure she even had. A deep sigh escaped her lips as she slowed her pace, rubbing her arms to ward off the chill. She had done everything she could to avoid situations like this, to avoid feeling so out of place. But here she was, in the middle of New York City, feeling more alone than ever. "I know this place," Emma said, her voice soft as she glanced up at the cozy cafe they had walked into. It was the kind of place she loved, small and warm, with soft jazz playing in the background and the scent of fresh coffee filling the air. She hadn't expected to find a place like this in the middle of the city, but here it was, a small sanctuary that made her feel at ease. She took a seat at one of the tables by the window, her hands still a little shaky, but she tried to hide it. Liam followed her, his presence calm and steady as he sat down across from her. "I figured you might like it," he said with a smile. "I don't usually come here, but something about it seemed right for today." Emma smiled, the corners of her mouth lifting despite herself. She wasn't sure why, but there was something different about Liam. He wasn't like the other men she had met, the ones who only cared about appearances, about what was on the outside. Liam seemed genuine. Maybe that was why, even after the awkwardness of earlier, she had agreed to stay and have coffee with him. They both ordered drinks, and the barista brought over 2 steaming cups, setting them down on the table. Liam took a sip of his coffee, his eyes never leaving hers. "So, tell me about you, Emma. Really. Not what's in your resume or the small talk. What's your story?" Emma blinked, surprised by the question. She wasn't used to being asked about herself, at least not like this, not in a way that felt so real, so personal. "I'm just a waitress," she said, looking down at her cup. "I don't really have much of a story. I mean, I work. I try to pay my bills. I have a dream. But that's about it." She paused, suddenly unsure if she should have shared so much, but the words were out before she could stop them. Liam didn't seem bothered by her response. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, his expression thoughtful. "What's the dream?" he asked quietly. Emma hesitated, but the way he was looking at her made it hard to lie, or even to hide her feelings. "I want to open my own art studio," she said, her voice a little stronger now. "I love painting. It's the one thing that makes me feel like I'm really doing something. I don't know how to make it happen, but I dream about it every day." There was a long pause as Liam took in her words. For a moment, Emma felt self-conscious again. Maybe it sounded silly. Maybe it was just a pipe dream. But it was hers. "That's not silly," Liam said, surprising her. "That's something worth pursuing. You should go for it, Emma. Don't let anyone tell you it's impossible." Emma blinked, caught off guard by his sincerity. She wasn't used to people telling her that her dreams mattered. Most people just shrugged it off, or told her to be practical, to get a real job. But here he was, this stranger, telling her to follow her heart. It made her feel lighter, in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "You don't need to thank me. But maybe one day, when you open that studio, you can invite me to an exhibition. I'd love to see your work." Emma laughed, a little breathless. "I'll definitely do that," she said, her smile wide. "I'm not there yet, but I'll get there." The conversation drifted from there, moving easily as they shared small details about their lives, their likes, their dislikes. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she wasn't just talking to someone out of obligation or because she had to. She felt heard, seen, in a way that was rare for her. Liam, on the other hand, was a mystery. He didn't reveal much about himself, other than the little bits he'd already said. But Emma wasn't going to push him for more. Not yet. She wasn't ready to ask questions that might make him close off. Instead, she focused on the moment, on the way they were connecting, on the way the city outside seemed to slow down as the minutes ticked by. After a while, they finished their drinks, and Liam stood up, offering her his hand. "I'll walk you home," he said, his voice easy. "It's late, and I don't want you walking alone." Emma looked at him, surprised. "You don't have to do that," she said quickly. "I'm fine. It's just a few blocks." Liam shook his head, his expression serious. "I insist. Besides, it's a nice evening, and I like the company." She hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. She didn't mind the company, and maybe it was nice to have someone looking out for her. They left the cafe together, walking side by side through the streets of New York City, the city that never seemed to sleep. But in that moment, it felt like everything had quieted down just for them. As they walked side by side through the bustling streets of New York, the bright lights of the city seemed to fade into the background. The hum of the traffic and the distant chatter of people felt distant, as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them. Emma glanced up at Liam, unsure of what to make of the night so far. The man she had initially mistaken for someone else was now walking her home, talking to her like they had known each other for years, as if nothing awkward had happened between them. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt at ease, not pressured, not judged, but genuinely listened to. "So, what about you?" she asked, her voice casual, but with a hint of curiosity. "You've been so focused on my little art dreams, but I don't know anything about you. What's your story, Liam?" He looked at her, the hint of a smile still playing at the corners of his lips. "There's not much to tell," he said. "I'm just a guy who works in tech, runs a company, tries to stay out of the spotlight when I can, the usual." Emma nodded, though she didn't quite believe him. There was something in his voice, something guarded in his words that made her think there was more to his story than he let on. "It's strange," she said slowly, "how people live these different lives, and yet we all end up crossing paths, like this. It feels like fate, in a way, doesn't it?" Liam paused, glancing down at her as if he was trying to decide if he should say more. After a moment, he spoke, his tone softer. "Maybe. Or maybe we just meet the people we're supposed to meet when we're ready." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Ready? Ready for what?" "Ready to learn something new," Liam said, his voice calm, but with a certain weight behind it. "Ready to see things differently. Ready to grow. Sometimes life throws things at us we don't expect, but it's up to us how we handle it. Some things are worth holding on to. Some things are meant to teach us a lesson, and then we move on." She looked at him, trying to read his face. His words felt like more than just advice, more like something he had learned the hard way. "Have you had to move on from something?" she asked, suddenly curious. Liam didn't answer immediately, and for a moment, Emma wondered if she had crossed a line. But then he sighed and spoke, his voice quieter now. "Yeah, I have. Everyone has to at some point." Emma didn't press further, but the silence that followed felt different than before. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it was deeper, like they had shared something without actually saying much. The walk continued, the city lights shimmering above them as they passed by late-night diners and bustling shops. Eventually, they reached Emma's apartment building. She stopped in front of the door, feeling a slight pang of disappointment. She wasn't sure why, but she had grown used to Liam's company. "Well, here we are," she said, trying to keep her tone light. "This is where I live. Thanks for walking me home." Liam smiled, the same genuine smile that had made her feel so at ease from the start. "Any time," he said, looking down at her with a mix of affection and respect. "I'm glad I could walk you home." Emma nodded, her heart beating a little faster than usual. She wasn't sure if it was the city lights or the way Liam was looking at her, but something in her chest fluttered. "I'll see you around," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "Maybe we can grab coffee again sometime?" Liam's smile widened. "I'd like that," he said, his eyes sparkling with sincerity. "Take care, Emma." "You too, Liam," she replied, and with that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. Emma stood there for a moment, watching him go, before she turned and entered her building. As she made her way up the stairs to her apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was the start of something unexpected, something that might just change her life. She opened the door to her apartment, her heart still racing, and closed it behind her. As she stood there, she couldn't help but smile to herself. Maybe life wasn't as predictable as she thought. And maybe, just maybe, tonight had been the beginning of a new chapter. She glanced around her modest apartment, the walls still adorned with a few unfinished paintings, and realized that, for the first time in a while, she felt hopeful. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And sometimes, that was all you needed. The next few days passed in a blur for Emma. She threw herself into her work, and the quiet, steady rhythm of her life felt almost comforting. She kept thinking about Liam, though, and every time she caught herself, she shook it off. He was just a guy she met by accident, nothing more. But as she walked into the cafe where they had first shared that awkward coffee date, she couldn't help but smile at the memory. It was still fresh in her mind, the way they had talked about everything and nothing at all, the way his eyes had softened when she spoke about her dreams. She had to admit, she hadn't met anyone quite like him before. For the first time in ages, she felt like maybe she could have more than what she had settled for. Maybe she could have that art studio. Maybe she could start believing in herself again. As she stood in line to order, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, half expecting another work email, but it was a message from an unfamiliar number. "Hey Emma, it's Liam. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to check in and see if you'd be free for coffee sometime this week. I was hoping to get to know you better." Her heart skipped a beat as she read the message, her thumb hovering over the screen. Was this real? Had he really reached out to her again? She quickly typed a reply, trying to sound casual, even though her heart was racing. "Hi Liam, I'm doing well, thanks. I'd love to grab coffee again. When are you free?" She hit send and waited, her mind racing with thoughts. What was this? Was he just being polite? Or did he actually want to see her again? A few minutes passed before he responded. "How about Thursday afternoon? There's a place I know near your apartment. Let me know if that works for you." Thursday. Emma smiled to herself, feeling a rush of excitement. "That sounds perfect," she replied, feeling a bit giddy. "I'll see you then." Thursday afternoon came, and Emma found herself standing outside the cafe, her nerves slightly on edge. She smoothed down her dress, trying to calm the fluttering in her stomach. She hadn't seen Liam since their walk home, and now here they were, meeting up again. The idea of it felt surreal. She wasn't sure why, but it felt like this meeting was important, like something was about to shift. As she walked inside, she spotted him right away. He was sitting at a small table by the window, looking just as composed as the last time she saw him. He stood up when he saw her, a smile spreading across his face. "Hey, Emma," he greeted her warmly, his eyes lighting up. "Good to see you again." "You too," Emma said, her voice a little breathless. She sat down across from him, her nerves now replaced with a soft excitement she couldn't explain. "I'm glad we could meet up again," Liam said as they both ordered their drinks. "I've been thinking about what you said the other day, about your dreams. I think it's really important that you don't give up on that." Emma was taken aback. "You've been thinking about that?" she asked, surprised. Liam nodded. "Yeah, it stuck with me. I know what it's like to have a dream, and I know it's not easy to make it happen. But you've got something real here, something worth fighting for." Emma felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. His words meant more to her than she could say. She hadn't expected him to care so much, and yet here he was, encouraging her to follow her dreams. It made her heart swell. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet but full of meaning. "That really means a lot to me." The conversation continued easily after that, as if there had never been an awkward first meeting, as if they were picking up right where they left off. They talked about everything: life, work, their favorite movies, their favorite music, and Emma found herself laughing, something she hadn't done in a while. Liam's presence made her feel at ease, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't worried about anything. It was just the two of them, talking and sharing, with no pressure and no expectations. When the coffee was finished, Liam paid for their drinks, and as they walked outside together, Emma felt a shift inside her. She wasn't sure what this was yet, what was happening between them, but she felt something stirring. There was a connection here, a bond she hadn't felt in a long time. "So, what's next for you, Emma?" Liam asked as they walked down the street. "What's your next move?" Emma took a deep breath. She had been thinking about this for a while. "I'm going to start working on my art studio," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I'm not sure how, but I'm going to find a way." Liam smiled, his eyes glowing with pride. "I knew you'd say that, and I believe in you, Emma. I know you can do it." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she hadn't expected but welcomed. She wasn't sure where this journey with Liam was going, but she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't alone in it. And that made all the difference. The following week was a whirlwind for Emma. It seemed like everything was falling into place. She spent her days working harder than ever at the cafe, saving up every penny she could, and her nights were spent sketching ideas for her art studio. The more she worked on her plans, the more excited she became about the possibility of it actually happening. But even with all this progress, there was one thing she couldn't shake: the growing feeling she had for Liam. She hadn't expected to feel this way. He had become a constant presence in her thoughts, even when she tried to focus on her art. It wasn't just the way he had listened to her, encouraged her dreams, or how he made her laugh. It was the way he made her feel, seen, valued. For the first time in so long, she didn't feel like she was just another face in the crowd, struggling to get by. And now, with Liam, it felt like maybe, just maybe, she was more than that. She could still remember their last coffee date, the way he looked at her, the warmth in his eyes as he spoke about her dreams. It had meant more to her than she had let on. It was more than just words of encouragement. It felt like a promise. But Emma had her doubts. She wasn't sure what Liam was looking for, what he saw in her. She had always been careful not to get her hopes up too high, not to imagine a future that might not come to pass. She didn't want to fall for someone only to find out they weren't on the same page. So, she decided to take a step back, to focus on her goals and not get distracted by the pull of attraction she felt whenever Liam was near. But it wasn't easy. One afternoon, as Emma was heading out of work, she spotted Liam waiting outside the cafe, leaning casually against his car. He looked up when he saw her, a smile spreading across his face. "Hey, Emma," he greeted her, his voice light and friendly. "Got a minute?" Emma's heart skipped a beat, and she tried not to let her surprise show. She hadn't expected to see him today. "Of course," she said, walking over to him. "What's up?" "I was hoping you'd join me for dinner," Liam said, his tone a little hesitant. "There's a place not far from here, and I thought it might be nice to sit down, talk, get to know each other better." Emma paused, her mind racing. She had been trying to keep things simple, not complicate them with more emotions than she was ready to handle. But the idea of spending more time with Liam, of seeing where this connection could go, was hard to resist. "I'd love to," she said, surprising herself with how quickly the words came out. Liam's smile widened, and he pushed off from the car, walking toward her. "Great. Let's go." The restaurant was a small, intimate spot with dim lighting and quiet music playing in the background. As they sat down, Emma felt her nerves start to kick in again, but Liam's easy smile and calm demeanor helped her relax. They ordered their meals, and as the conversation flowed, Emma found herself opening up more than she had in a long time. "So, what's your story, Liam?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "You never really talk about yourself. What's it like being a CEO?" Liam hesitated for a moment, then leaned back in his chair, looking thoughtful. "It's not what most people think," he said quietly. "It's not all business meetings and fancy dinners. Sometimes, it's a lot of pressure, a lot of loneliness. You can't always trust people, and the higher you go, the harder it gets to find someone who truly sees you for who you are." Emma listened intently, her heart aching a little for him. She had no idea that behind the polished exterior, Liam might be carrying so much. "That sounds rough," she said softly. "But why do you keep doing it?" Liam looked at her, his expression softening. "Because I love what I do. I believe in the work we're doing, but it's also because I want to prove that I can do it, even if I'm not always sure of myself." Emma nodded, understanding more than he knew. "I get that," she said. "I think we all have something we're trying to prove to ourselves." There was a long pause as they both took a sip of their drinks, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. Emma looked across the table at Liam, seeing him in a new light. He wasn't just some successful CEO. He was a man who was navigating his own fears and doubts, just like everyone else. "I'm glad we're doing this," Emma said, breaking the silence. "I didn't know what to expect when we first met. But this feels different." Liam's eyes met hers, and for a moment there was a quiet understanding between them. "Yeah," he said, his voice steady. "Me too." After dinner, they walked outside, the cool night air wrapping around them. Liam paused in front of her apartment building, turning to face her. "I'm really glad we got to do this, Emma," he said. "Me too," she replied, her heart full. "Thanks for the dinner." Liam smiled, his gaze soft. Anytime. As Emma watched him walk away, she couldn't help but feel a sense of peace settle over her. This wasn't just another chance encounter. This was the beginning of something real, something worth fighting for. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt ready to take that leap. Over the next few days, Emma found herself thinking about Liam more and more. Their dinner had been a turning point, a moment where everything felt lighter, more hopeful. It wasn't just the way he made her feel special or the way he understood her dreams. It was the connection between them, something that was starting to feel like more than just a fleeting moment. Yet she still hesitated. What was this really? She had her art studio to focus on, her dreams that were just starting to feel possible, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to throw herself into something that might just end up as another distraction. But every time she told herself to focus on her goals, she thought about Liam's words. "You should go for it, Emma," he had said. "Don't let anyone tell you it's impossible." And maybe, just maybe, she could have both the studio and him. She hadn't imagined it could be that simple, but for the first time in a long time, the possibility of having both felt real. The next Thursday, as Emma was finishing her shift at the cafe, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out of her pocket and saw a message from Liam. "Hey, how's everything going with your art studio plans? I've been thinking about it. I know it's a big step, but I believe in you." Emma smiled, her heart warming at the message. She quickly typed back, "Thanks, Liam. It's been going well, but there's still a long way to go. I'm figuring things out, one step at a time." She wasn't sure why, but her fingers hovered over the keys for a moment. Then she added, "I've been thinking about you too." She pressed send before she could talk herself out of it. It didn't take long for his reply to come through. "I've been thinking about you a lot too," he wrote. "How about we meet up again? Just the two of us, no distractions." Emma felt her stomach flutter. This was exactly what she needed, a chance to sit down with him, to talk, and maybe figure out where they both stood. "I'd love that," she replied. "How about tomorrow evening?" Liam responded almost immediately. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. The next evening, Emma stood in front of her apartment, nervously adjusting her dress. She wasn't sure why she was nervous. It wasn't like this was their first date. It was just dinner. But there was something different about tonight. Something had shifted between them, and she couldn't quite put her finger on it. When Liam arrived, he was smiling, as usual, his presence calming her almost immediately. "You look beautiful," he said softly as she got in the car. Emma blushed, looking away. "Thank you. You don't look so bad yourself," she teased, trying to hide the way her heart was racing. Liam laughed, and they drove off in comfortable silence, the hum of the car engine the only sound between them. They arrived at a quiet Italian restaurant, a cozy little place with warm lighting and the scent of garlic in the air. As they sat down at a small table by the window, Emma couldn't help but feel like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Dinner was filled with laughter, easy conversation, and a warmth that Emma hadn't expected. They talked about everything, from their childhoods to their favorite hobbies to their hopes for the future. As they shared stories, Emma realized that she was more open with Liam than she had been with anyone in a long time. She wasn't afraid to show him who she really was, and he seemed to appreciate that. When the meal was over, they lingered at the table, sipping wine and talking about their dreams for the future. "I want to build something meaningful," Liam said, his voice softer now. "Something that lasts. It's not just about the money, Emma. It's about making a difference." Emma nodded, her heart swelling with admiration. "I get that," she said, her voice steady. "I want to do the same. I want to create something that feels real, something that matters." They sat in silence for a moment, both lost in their thoughts. Then Liam looked at her, his gaze intense. "What if you didn't have to do it alone, Emma?" he asked quietly. She looked up at him, her breath catching in her throat. "What do you mean?" she asked, unsure of where this conversation was going. "What if I could help you?" Liam said, his voice low. "Not just with your art studio, but with whatever you need. I want to support you, Emma. I want to be there for you." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. Was he offering to help her achieve her dreams? Or was there something more to this? She didn't know, but she knew one thing: she wasn't ready to walk away from this connection. "You don't have to do that," she said softly. "I can figure it out on my own." But Liam shook his head. "You don't have to do everything alone. We all need help sometimes. I want to be someone who's there for you, Emma." Her heart skipped a beat, and she felt a lump form in her throat. She had always been so independent, so focused on doing everything on her own, But the idea of having someone by her side, someone who truly cared, was something she hadn't allowed herself to believe in for a long time. She reached across the table, her hand brushing his. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means more than you know." Liam squeezed her hand gently, his eyes filled with warmth. "You're welcome, Emma." As they left the restaurant, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Maybe it was the way Liam looked at her, or the way he had offered to help her with her dreams, but it felt like this was the start of something new, something that was worth fighting for. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she wasn't just living for herself. She had someone in her corner, and that made all the difference. The following weeks were a blur of new beginnings for Emma. She continued working at the cafe during the day, but at night she focused more and more on her art studio plans. With Liam's encouragement, she started to take real steps toward making her dream a reality. Liam had become a constant in her life, supporting her, checking in on her progress, and offering advice when she needed it. He wasn't just a friend. He was someone who believed in her, in a way she had never experienced before. But as their connection deepened, Emma still had moments of doubt. She had been independent for so long, relying only on herself, that the idea of depending on someone else, especially someone like Liam, felt foreign. But with every conversation they shared, with every moment of support he offered, her walls slowly began to crumble. Emma had always told herself that her dreams were hers alone to pursue, that she didn't need anyone's help. But Liam made her realize that asking for help didn't make her weak. It made her strong enough to accept love and support from others. One evening, after a particularly busy shift at the cafe, Emma walked out into the cool night air, feeling exhausted but accomplished. She had spent the day finalizing some of her plans for the studio, and it was all starting to come together. She was about to text Liam to share the good news when her phone rang. It was him. "Hey, Emma." Liam's voice came through, warm and familiar. "I've been thinking about something, and I wanted to talk to you about it. Are you free to meet up tonight?" Emma smiled, her heart fluttering. "I'm free. I'm just finishing up at work." "What's going on?" "It's a surprise," Liam said, his voice teasing. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Just get ready." Her curiosity piqued. Emma quickly finished her shift and headed home. She didn't know what Liam had planned, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. When Liam arrived, he was standing outside her building with a wide grin on his face. "You're in for a surprise," he said, opening the car door for her. "Come on, let's go." Emma followed him, her heart racing with excitement. They drove through the city, heading to an area she hadn't been to before. As they arrived at a sleek building with floor-to-ceiling windows, Emma was taken aback. "Where are we?" she asked, her eyes widening. "Just wait," Liam said with a grin. He led her inside, where they were greeted by a sleek, modern space filled with art paintings, sculptures, and vibrant installations. Emma's breath caught in her throat. It was a gallery. Liam had brought her to an art gallery. She looked at him, her eyes wide with surprise. "Liam, this is amazing. Why are we here?" He smiled softly, his gaze intense. "I know you've been working hard on your studio plans, Emma. I wanted to show you something that might inspire you, something to remind you that dreams like yours are real, that they can happen. I want you to see what's possible." Emma felt a wave of emotion rise in her chest. She hadn't expected this, didn't expect Liam to be so thoughtful, so considerate of her dreams. She felt a lump in her throat, and for a moment, all she could do was take in the beauty around her. The gallery was filled with colors, textures, and forms that spoke to the very essence of what she wanted to create in her own space. It felt like a reflection of everything she had been working for, everything she had imagined. "This is incredible," Emma whispered, still trying to wrap her mind around it. I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Liam said, his voice soft but full of meaning. "Just know that I believe in you, and I believe that one day your art will be seen in places like this." Tears stung Emma's eyes as she looked at him, overwhelmed by the support he had shown. She had always been afraid of her dreams being too big, of failing before she even started. But with Liam by her side, she realized that maybe, just maybe, her dreams were within reach. "Thank you," Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. "This means more than you know. You're making me believe in myself again." Liam smiled gently, his eyes full of warmth. "You've always had the ability to make it happen, Emma. I'm just here to remind you of that. You've got this." They spent the next few hours exploring the gallery, talking about art, about life, and about the future. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt hopeful. She wasn't just chasing a dream anymore, she was building it step by step with the support of someone who truly cared. As they left the gallery that night, Liam turned to her, his hand brushing hers. "I know this is just the beginning, Emma," he said softly. "But I want you to know that no matter where this journey takes you, I'll be here." Emma smiled, a sense of peace settling over her. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that with Liam by her side, anything was possible. She squeezed his hand, knowing that this was the start of something beautiful. As weeks passed, Emma's art studio began to take shape. It wasn't easy. Every day was a new challenge, a new obstacle to overcome. But with Liam's support, she felt like she could face anything. They had spent countless hours talking about the details, brainstorming ideas, and even looking at spaces together. Liam was there every step of the way, not as a mentor, but as someone who believed in her more than she had ever believed in herself. Emma had grown used to having him by her side, his quiet encouragement pushing her forward. The studio was starting to look like the vision she had always dreamed of. She had a space now, an actual place to call her own, and every brushstroke, every sketch, felt like a step closer to bringing her dream to life. But even with all the excitement and progress, Emma couldn't ignore the growing feelings she had for Liam. Every time he came to visit her at the studio, every time they spent time together outside of work, it became more and more difficult to deny the bond they shared. But Emma was scared. She had never allowed herself to fall in love so quickly, especially with someone who had already done so much for her. She didn't want to put herself in a position where she would end up hurting. But the more she tried to push him away, the closer he seemed to get, and deep down, she knew she couldn't keep pretending that she didn't feel the same way. One afternoon, as Emma was putting the final touches on a new piece for the studio, she heard a knock on the door. She turned around to see Liam standing there, his expression soft and sincere. "Hey," he said quietly, stepping into the studio. "How's it going?" Emma smiled, her heart beating a little faster. "It's coming along." "Slowly but surely," she said, brushing some paint off her hands. Liam took a step closer, looking around at the work she had done. "It looks amazing, Emma. You've really created something beautiful here." Emma couldn't help the way her heart swelled at his words. She had worked so hard to make this a reality, and hearing him say that meant more to her than she could explain. "Thanks," she said, her voice soft. "I couldn't have done it without you." Liam paused for a moment, his eyes meeting hers. "You've always had the ability to do this on your own, Emma," he said. "But I'm glad I could be a part of it." Emma looked down, suddenly feeling overwhelmed by everything: the studio, the work, and most of all, her feelings for Liam. She wasn't sure what to say, so she just stood there in silence, lost in the moment. But then, Liam took a step forward, his hand reaching for hers. "Emma," he said, his voice gentle, "there's something I need to say." She looked up at him, her heart racing. "What is it?" "I know we've both been focused on the studio, on your dreams," he began, "but I can't ignore the way I feel about you anymore." Emma's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing. Was he about to say what she thought he was? "Liam," she whispered, unsure of what to say. "I've been trying to figure this out," Liam continued, "but every time I'm with you, I realize that what I feel is real. I care about you, Emma, more than I've ever cared about anyone." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. She had always been afraid of letting herself fall, but here he was, admitting that he felt the same way. "I care about you too," she said softly, her voice trembling. Liam's eyes softened, and he took another step closer. "I want to be with you, Emma," he said. "I want to see where this goes, to be by your side as you build your dreams, as we build something together." Emma's heart swelled with emotion, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have everything she ever wanted. A career she loved, a future she believed in, and someone who truly saw her. She reached out, taking his hand in hers. "I want that too," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. Liam smiled, a smile that reached his eyes, and pulled her into a gentle embrace. "We're in this together," he said softly, "and nothing is going to stop us." Emma held him close, feeling the warmth of his arms around her, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like everything was finally falling into place. She wasn't alone in this anymore. She had Liam by her side, and together they would face whatever came next. The future was uncertain, but with him, it didn't feel so scary anymore. It felt like a new beginning, one full of endless possibilities. And as they stood there in the studio, surrounded by the work that had come to life, Emma knew that this was just the start of something beautiful.